Ladies and gentlemen, you wanted it, you got it. The place for the untold, real, raw, and juicy stories of dirt track racing. It's Dirt Track Confessions. And now here's your host, Mandee Pauch Mahaney.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Dirt Track Confessions. I'm your host, Mandee Pauch Mahaney. This week, we've got Simpson Racing Products Sales Account Manager joining us. I know it sounds so official over here, Jordan, but Jordan Killen, how are you doing?
Good. Happy to be here. Excited to talk about safety in racing.
Me too. I feel like this is long overdue. So first and foremost, it's funny, as I was making my notes for this, Jordan, I thought, I talk to you pretty often, but I have no idea. How did you even end up here?
Fair question. It's a funny story. It's a basic story, honestly. Went to college, have raced off-road stuff since I was like 14. Went to college for business and then was like, actually, I'm not done going to college. I want to play with race cars some more. So got a degree in high-performance motorsports. And then quickly realized, there's a reason that the carpenter's house always goes unfinished. So I didn't want to work on other people's race cars for a living. I wanted to work on my own for fun. So decided to go the sales route and started out selling racing parts. And then stumbled upon a really good job with Simpson and been here started out on the trailer and then been here ever since. Now I've kind of graduated to off-trailer sales.
Dude, I never heard of that quote, and that is so spot on. I'm thinking about, wow, Mike, when was the last time you changed the oil in your truck?
Exactly.
So I know, for you, I personally feel, because we work pretty closely, is you wear a lot of hats, okay? But yeah. What would you roughly say your day-to-day looks like?
It's fun because I wear a lot of hats, so it's a little bit of everything. I have two types of days. I have an office day and I have a track day. So on an average track day, I'm at the track with or without a trailer, talking to drivers, fitting helmets, fitting hybrids, checking out safety equipment, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. A day in the office. On one hand, I'm managing business to business accounts. So I work really closely with a list of dealers. So work on that, POs and that kind of stuff, all the boring back end stuff. But I also work with a lot of the DTC stuff, so a lot of direct to consumer stuff. Work with individual drivers that I've met through my travels or that have been passed along word of mouth. But also the fun aspect of my job in a lot of ways is the sponsored drivers. Yeah. So I manage a lot of sponsored relationships, Mike Mahaney being one of our sponsored drivers. But that I would say sponsored drivers take about 60% of my day. So working with their needs, they're constantly getting new suits, new helmets, and stuff like that.
Speaking of, I better get on top of that. Better get on top of that. So, okay, let's talk. Obviously, how can we not talk like products, talk safety? What
Sure.
would you say, it probably leads prior to, being a part of Simpson, but what would you say has been some of the biggest misconceptions that a lot of drivers have about safety?
Sure. A big one is a helmet is a helmet.
Yes.
That's a huge one for us. And a fire suit is a fire suit. And once you start diving into the world and getting to a certain level of racing, you realize yes, they've passed the same safety standards. However, the creature comforts that come with a nicer helmet or a nicer fire suit is a huge thing. Mm-hmm. How burn levels and TTPs, stuff like that is usually overlooked. And people don't realize how big of a difference it is if you wear fireproof underwear underneath or fire resistant underwear underneath as opposed to just wearing a cotton t-shirt underneath. So stuff like that I think are the two biggest overlooked. They're like, oh, it's safety gear. I also think safety gear as a whole is a big overlooked part of racing. Yeah. It seems to be the last thing people think of right before they get to the track is, oh, did anyone look in that car and make sure that the belts aren't expired? And they're like, we know the motor runs great, but haven't checked the belts since we got it back out. So I think as a whole, a lot of it's overlooked. But more specifically, an oversight by a lot of people is a helmet's a helmet, a suit's a suit, as opposed to looking at the quality of things.
That just reminded me, it was years ago, Jordan, but I remember showing up to the races and we didn't have seatbelts in the car. Yeah. That was...
It is very much the case.
Not surprising there, but I mean,
I am guilty of it myself. And
totally happens. And that's the thing is, the safety products don't necessarily make the cars go faster. So, like you said, that's not the first thing in the top of their mind is, oh well, my seatbelts aren't going to make my car go faster. My shoes aren't going to make my car go faster. So I get it, which is frustrating, but obviously, like, safety comes first, man. Safety absolutely comes first. So let's
of
talk.
course,
How does a driver properly fit, their helmet, their suit? Like, are there any key things that, I don't know, that they should look for that maybe obviously you work with drivers every day. Like, is there a reoccurrence in things that you're like, oh wait, make sure you check this?
when it comes to helmet, the way you fit things is totally different, obviously, depending on what it is. Shoes, comfort, don't want anything clunky. We'll go from the bottom up. So shoes, don't want anything clunky. I always tell people they fit more like soccer cleats than they do sneakers. So it's kind of a comfort thing, but you have to kind of adapt your size based on that. Then when moving up, you get into your fire suit. Fire suits, comfort is a really big one with fire suits. And then, but in that, you want to be comfortable, want to have room to move, but you don't want anything loose or baggy or dangling, nothing that's going to catch or get stuck on anything. That's a really big part of fire suits. Plus, you just want to look good, and a baggy suit doesn't look great. So that's a big part of it for a lot of people. Style points, of course. And then moving up into the helmet, every helmet fits a little bit different. Every helmet is a little bit different shaped when it comes to the actual EPS liner in it, and what the foam is going to look like. So some helmets tend to fit better for an ovular shaped head. Some helmets tend to fit better for a circular head. It just kind of depends, but a basic rule of thumb is the most important part when you're starting a helmet fitting is you want the crown of your head to fit comfortably, but be tight enough that there's not a lot of movement. You want almost no movement in your helmet, but you want almost as tight as it can be without giving you a headache, with no pressure points. And we kind of work our way down in the helmet that way. We move it up and down on your head using a top pad. There's adjustable top pads depending on what helmet you wear. And then we work our way down, make sure the crown is fitting correctly, and then onto the cheek pads. Cheek pads are integral when it comes to keeping it centered, but it's also the thing you notice the most when it comes to comfort in the car.
Okay, so obviously there's expiration dates on these things. So how often would you say should drivers be replacing, any and all gear?
A lot of this is universal between any sanctioning body. In the U.S., almost exclusively, we're using Snell SA-rated things. However, FIA comes into play as well, but it just kind of depends. When it comes to suits and underwear and socks and sort of gloves and soft materials, there's technically no expiration date. But we always recommend use your best judgment. If there's starting to be rips, it needs to be replaced or repaired. If you're wearing through thin on stuff, that definitely needs to be checked out, if not repaired or replaced. Other than that, honestly, the expiration dates on your safety equipment are pretty accurate to their life cycle. So if you're looking at a helmet, the Snell rating inside your helmet, regardless of date of manufacture, for most helmets, you go by the Snell rating. So for example, we are currently phasing out our Snell 2020 because Snell 25 has come out. It's every 5 years a new Snell rating comes, so it's 2020, 2025, 2030. However, every 10 years your helmet expires. So a Snell 2020 won't expire until the year 2030. Okay. And that's a pretty good rule of thumb. When it comes to your seatbelts, whatever it says on it is their expiration date. The tricky one for most people is your head and neck restraint. It is not expired on the date that it says on the tag. It expires 5 years from the date on your tag. And so that is confusing for a lot of people.
Now, is there a reason for that?
That's just what Snell gave us, and we said, you got it, no worries. So when we do it, it's the date of recertification because head and neck restraints are recertifiable, unlike a lot of other aspects of racing safety equipment. The one caveat to that is suits in drag racing have to be recertified.
Okay, so now you talked about like your underwear looks like friggin' Swiss cheese here, but let's talk suits, helmets, gloves, shoes, restraints. Like, are there what kind of signs should people be looking for, even if they're not even close to the expiration date, that they might need to replace it?
Sure, yeah. for head and neck restraint, we want to look at it, or whoever the manufacturer of your head and neck restraint is. If you're in any sort of large wreck where you're clipping a car, like you're going to put a clip on a car, you went upside down, any large, the wrecker's pulling you off short of like losing the wheel, we usually recommend getting your head and neck restraint checked out. Any hard impact, we always recommend replacing your seat belts. We also recommend having your helmet looked at by the manufacturer if there's any chance that you hit your head sort of in any capacity, or even just a large impact of any sort. We recommend getting it looked at. When it comes to the soft goods, like I said, any rips, tears, wearing through, anything of that nature, it's usually time to replace. Depending on where it is on a suit, we can repair them. Like any gusset material can be repaired. We can replace that. We've actually done it for Mike's suits before. Yes. But those are kind of the key factors when it comes to, even if it's not time and it hasn't expired, it's still a good idea to get them checked out.
Yeah. Okay. So then what would you say is like the one piece of gear most drivers don't think about but really should think about?
I say it all the time. Socks and shoes are a big one for me. And most people don't, not most people, but an average person getting into racing doesn't think about the fact that they should wear fire resistant socks. But if you think about it, your feet are at the firewall. That's where all the things that catch on fire are, and the things that get hot. And I think it's a huge misstep to not be wearing something that is very affordable when it comes to racing in the grand scheme of things, and it protects your feet because they're close to where the action happens.
Okay. So let's say someone is a new race car driver. They're probably racing on a budget. I'm not saying probably, but they're more than likely racing on a budget. Do you have any tips you can offer them, or maybe talk about some things that they definitely shouldn't be cutting corners on?
Sure. Yeah. And it's safety. So it's tough to say like you can cut a corner on anything. Of course, we don't want to say you can cut a corner on anything because it's safety related. However, there are good, better, best for everything across the brands that Holley owns itself, RaceQuip, Simpson, Hans, Stilo, and across the market as a whole. There are brands that are entry-level brands all the way up to incredibly expensive, custom, super tailored things. The big ones for me are make sure your fire rating matches what you're racing. So even if or above. So a lot of times it will allow an SFI 1 fire suit. I always recommend doing an SFI 5. It is more expensive, but it's something that's well worth the investment, especially if you're going to wear that suit for years and you're looking to step up eventually. A helmet is hard to go wrong depending on the type of racing you do, but all forms of racing, it is such a mental game that get a helmet that is comfortable on your head and is rated for what you're doing. If you can't get your head right and you're constantly uncomfortable, as someone who races myself, I race for hours and hours at a time, between 3 and 6 hours at most races. It's one of those things that you don't think about until you're sitting down because you haven't worn it for that long, and you sit down and you put it on and you go, I can't concentrate on anything. So I think if anything, the biggest one is comfort in your helmet and exceeding, if not meeting safety standards.
Totally makes sense. Then I see this all the time. What are your thoughts on people buying secondhand safety equipment?
Secondhand safety equipment is one of those things. There are things that you can definitely purchase secondhand or use secondhand given to you by someone else. I always recommend getting it checked out by the manufacturer if that's an option. Something like a head and neck restraint, we see it all the time. A kid will outgrow it. They'll send it back to us, have it recertified, checked out professionally before it's resold. Those are generally speaking good practices. Something like a fire suit, you can check at home, make sure it's not worn through, make sure there's obviously no singe marks, anything like that. And the way that Nomex singes is different. So learn to look at that, stuff like that. Things like fire suits, shoes, gloves, all of those are pretty easy to justify wearing a secondhand one. It's usually not a safety hazard as long as you've checked everything out. We always advocate for checking everything out before you're going to wear it. When it comes to seat belts and helmets and things of that nature, that's when it's a little bit trickier because you can't visually, without pulling the liner a lot of times, see what that helmet has been through, see if those belts have been in any sort of, with the untrained eye has a harder time seeing what those belts have, if they've seen impact, if they've seen driver shift, that sort of thing. So that's there are places that it is okay, and for some stuff, and there are places where, but a big one where we see it is like little kids. So like if a little kid is outgrowing a suit every 6 months and they want to pass that suit down to their next kid, it totally makes sense to do.
Yeah. All right. So what is something that most drivers don't realize? Like I was talking to Mike about this earlier, is, it basically, like, it can come down to as simple as I would assume what you wash your uniform with, right? So like, what is something most drivers don't realize can actually damage or maybe shorten the life of their safety gear? And I mean, I was just thinking, because I was doing laundry, so maybe not.
So something that like people don't think about is, especially in the dirt world that you're obviously familiar with, grit and just like not washing everything, and not just as simple as like, oh, I throw my suit in the wash because it's dirty and I want it to look nice, but like things like helmets get dirt under them and you'll start seeing scratch marks, and that is wearing things. And not washing out your belts will cause them to not stick in any negative sense of the word, but they just won't function as easily as they used to and slide as easy as they used to. So that's a really big one, especially if you're going to use something like a cam lock belt where there's like nooks and crannies in there. Like that's something you definitely want to clean out really, really well. Those are things that like you'll get more life out of your equipment if you are nice to it. The same way you change the oil in your race car because you want to save your rods and pistons, right? You're going to in your bearings. You're going to you want to clean everything out, make sure it has a fresh start. It also saves you money in the long run. Things that people don't think about are like, oh, I didn't really wash my helmet that well, and then the next race you're going to work on it and you go to wipe it with your hand, and you just scratched a shield, and now you have to buy a shield because you have a scratch mark right in the front of you. So definitely cleaning increases longevity of all of your safety gear, and drying it. These are foam linings, not unsimilar to like a foam cooler you'd purchase at Walmart. Think that type of foam, but highly engineered. So that is like, sweat will slowly get into these things, and cleaning them will increase longevity of that.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So let's talk Simpson as a whole. How do you feel, I guess, Simpson stays on top of like the safety, maybe say keeping up with the industry? It's always changing, the cars, the technology, from what you see and what how do they keep up with this?
I really think that Simpson as a whole is very cutting edge when it comes to things, especially with all of our new lines, and Stilo doing constant experimentation has been awesome for cutting edge technology, always keeping up with the trends in the market, and also just increasing safety. Everything we do is always a step forward and never a step back. So as racing moves on, it just gets safer and safer and safer. And at Simpson, I think it's no different, obviously. With Snell changes, of course, we have standards we have to uphold, but even within ourselves working on things, our main goal is to keep everyone as safe as possible. So we're constantly evolving, coming up with new little things here and there, industry secrets and stuff like that just kind of make our helmets lighter but stronger, and things of that nature. And as you get lighter, you have less complications with weight on your head and stuff.
Speaking of new, tell us what you have that's going on that's new.
The Snell cycle is coming up. If you've been in racing a while, your helmet is expiring soon from a 2015. So with Snell 2020 or 2025 coming out, we have new helmets. We have recertified helmets that you've seen before, but a big one for us right now is the Stilo ST6 and the Stilo WRX have just come out. In dirt racing, the ST6 is going to be the popular one, but the WRX in our off-road market has been really, really big for us. So that's been really, really good for us. We also have FIA fire suits now, fully certified with the FIA. So any international racing, we can make suits for, which is pretty awesome.
That is amazing. Okay, well, Jordan, You nailed this. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day. Can you tell our listeners the best way, to get in contact with Simpson, a Simpson rep, how to get that ball rolling, if they have any questions, you name it.
So you can contact the Holly main line. Simpson is owned by Holly. The other option is to go right to the Simpson website. There's a contact us phone number at the bottom, or you're welcome to order online. If you have any questions, our technical support is awesome. They're great. Or meet us at the races. We're at a lot of races, increasingly so lately. We try to get out there with our trailers or just on foot. So we're around.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Jordan. I appreciate it. And everyone, I hope you guys enjoyed this. And if so, please like it, share it, give Simpson a shout out, a tag, and we will catch you guys right here next week.
Thanks so much.